Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, hello and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and founder of the Alzheimer Speaks platforms. Before we get started with our great show today, I always know that we get new listeners, so I just want to explain what we're about. Alzheimer Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort around the world. And we believe that by joining forces and sharing knowledge and just having these everyday conversations about life with dementia, that we can remove the stigmas attached to memory loss and help those live purposeful lives with the disease. Together, we can have an understanding of what it truly is like to be dealing with this disease. It's so important for us to remove the fear and to remove the isolation that those in the trenches are feeling. So collaboratively, we know that we're making a difference. You guys have done a wonderful job at helping us spread the word by your clicks and your likes and sharing these episodes along with the Alzheimer Speaks website and blog and our YouTube channels. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Every time you share, you're opening the door to people in your own circles. And so many times there are people that are dealing with Alzheimer's disease or memory loss or some form of dementia or caregiving that we just don't even know about because the conversations aren't being had. And when you allow people to find information that they can use when the time is right for them, they'll go ahead and tap into it. So I thank you for that because we were recognized by ShareCare, and Dr. Oz is the #1 influencer online for Alzheimer's disease, and that's just a huge, huge honor. And we don't take that lightly. So, again, we want to thank each and every one of you for participating because that wouldn't be possible without all of you. For today's show, like any other show, if you're listening by your computer, you can talk with us via the chat box or you can call in live at 714-364-4757. Again, that is 714-364-4757. And we can we'll pull you into the conversation as we proceed here. We invite everyone to be part of this conversation. If you're diagnosed and living with the disease, if you're a personal friend or family member caring for someone or a professional, or maybe you're just somebody who is interested in learning more or has knowledge in a specific area, please speak out. That's what Alzheimer Speaks is really about. It's about sharing the knowledge. I also want to just give some shout-outs to some of my favorite organizations here. The Alzheimer's Disease International Group is absolutely a fantastic group that is the association of all associations around the world, and it's a great place to go to for resources and to find who's closest in your particular area. The Alzheimer's Studies Group is working on a tau clinical trial right now, and they are looking for people to participate in that. So you can go to the alzheimersstudies.com to get more information on that Tau trial. It's in their third trial, so they're working their way up and having great success with that. The Lewy Body Dementia Association, or you can go to lbda.org, can really help you out. That type of dementia has, some of its own individual symptoms, and they just have some great resources there. Same with the frontal temporal lobe dementia. There's an organization called the Association for Frontal Temporal Degeneration, and they've made it real easy. Their URL is theaftd.org. There's also the Aphasia organization out there that when people are having difficulty talking, that's a great one to go to. And then, of course, I'd be amiss if I didn't mention Norms McNamara and the Purple Angel Project. I am lucky enough to be picked as one of the worldwide ambassadors for that new global symbol for dementia, starting up dementia-friendly businesses and communities. So I want to go ahead and just introduce my co-host here today, who has just been a joy to have on the show with me all month. Sherry Snelling is the CEO and founder of the Caregiver Club, and she's also the author of a great book called A Cast of Caregivers, Celebrity Stories to Help You Prepare to Care. She is a nationally recognized expert on the 65 million family caregivers, with an emphasis on, how do you find that balance when you're caring for a loved one? She writes articles for the Huffington Post and Forbes and USA Today. Very, very well-known author and writer. She was also picked as one of my top 10 cohorts with the Share Care recognition of being top 10. And so, Sherry, welcome today. We're thrilled to have you.
Oh, Lori, thanks again for having me on all this month. It's so great to celebrate National Family Caregiver Month and also National Alzheimer's Awareness Month with you.
It really is. I'm excited about this show today because, with the holidays upon us, it's just a great time for people to learn about high-tech and high-touch things that they can do for people with dementia and also those caring for them. So I think our lineup today is just a fantastic one. And I'm wondering if you want to go ahead and introduce our first guest to our audience.
No, I'd be delighted. In fact, I'm excited by today's lineup as well. And our first guest, Ruth Curran, is not just a colleague but also a friend. And I'm excited to have her tell you about all of the things that she's doing with Cranium Crunches, which is a site that she started, which she's going to tell us more about. But let me tell you a little bit about Ruth. She has a passion in an area of intense study and exploration between the connection that we have between the brain and daily functioning. And she's particularly taken an interest in looking at the connection as a result of aging and stress and disease and injury. And in fact, I was so honored to work with Ruth on one of her recent apps that she's going to tell us about, which is called Relax, which is a great example of how caregivers can get a little break and take care of themselves, something we all know needs to be done. But Ruth, she uses photo-based series of thinking games and apps that incorporate short exercises that promote stress as a path to better thinking and functioning. And she has a wide variety of games and exercises on her site, and it inspires players to use their imagination, use strategies, and focus while building those neural pathways that reduce stress. Ruth comes to us from a background in nonprofit health clinics and home care, and, she really has a broad understanding of these issues, having seen it firsthand throughout her career and also personally, and I think she'll tell us a little bit about the story behind Cranium Crunches. So, Ruth, it's so great to have you here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for that great introduction, too, Sherry. I'm honored.
Of course. Well, let's start off, Ruth, by having you tell us the story behind Cranium Crunches and what Cranium Crunches is and what you do.
Cranium Crunches is a way for people to work on specific areas of functioning and to work with other people. I started this. It's kind of a long, convoluted story, but I'll give you the short version. I was working with my dad who had Parkinsonian dementia. And he did not have there weren't any exercises, and I thought, well, surely I can help him. There weren't any exercises that I could find that weren't paper and pencil, and because he shook, and that he could pay attention to long enough. So the only thing that really resonated with him was this Life magazine Find the Difference puzzle. And we sat and we looked at the pictures and we talked about the pictures. He found some of the differences, but mostly it was that connection that when I was sitting there with him, had. So I started to build on that. And I told my son, who was at that time, I believe, 21 or 22, about the idea, and he said, Mom, we have to go to the bar. So he took me to the bar, and we looked at this game called Photo Hunt. And that's where all of the Find the Difference puzzles started. It was this competitive game that was all high-tech. So I started developing from there. All of the games are interactive, so caregivers can sit with the person that they're helping and make that connection and tell stories to each other, too. So it's a little bit of the background behind where Cranium Crunches started.
Wow, that's a really interesting story, actually, in terms of it. And I find it always interesting how these things come into play, and every business is created because there's a need in trying to get creative, and I just so appreciate people like yourself who take the time to make a difference and really improve lives. Why is it important for you to help not only those that are struggling, but those that are caring for people learn to relax and be able to exercise their brain as well?
Yeah, there are a couple of things behind that. First of all, Sherry does a marvelous job of talking about the sandwich generation, the generation of people who are sometimes still caring for kids at home while caring for parents who are aging. And that the stress and strain that is put on, especially that generation, is unbelievable. Your brain releases cortisol, which, makes everything misfire. If we can take that cortisol level down, if we can take that down just a little bit, be able to take a short breath. Now, that's easy to say, but in practice, caregivers are probably the busiest people that you'll ever meet. You're on call all the time. You don't have those minutes to take. So what I tried to do with Relax, with Sherry's help, is break down exercises into small bites and make effective pieces in 2 to 3 minutes. The longest exercise on the app is 7.5 minutes, and that's a long guided relaxation. So in less than 10 minutes, most of them are less than 3 minutes, you can take that breath, take a step back, and renew a little bit of yourself. Caregiver burnout's unbelievable, and when you're a family caregiver, you can't afford to burn out. In the paid world, in the home care world, there's a difference. You can walk away. There's respite. Family caregivers don't always have that luxury, so anything we can do to support that effort to just take a step back, take care of yourself for a moment, and renew and rejuvenate just a little bit.
And Ruth, I was so excited to help promote Relax, which is the app that you came out with, and we did that special day around National Relax Day in August. But, I know it's hard, and I want to tell our listeners it's really difficult on, radio to really explain how beautiful and elegant this app is that Ruth has created. Can you kind of walk us through, some of the imagery is so gorgeous, and tell us some of the exercises that are in this smartphone app?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The very first section, and the one that I think really does the most benefit for people, is the guided relaxation exercises. So you enter the guided relaxation exercises and you pick a different journey. There's one where you focus on breathing, and that's about 4 minutes long. If you pick that, I walk you through a whole relax your body, focus on your breath, all of those things. And while you're doing that, you have the option of choosing imagery. And we've got photos of water and sunsets and flowers, and you can pick those kind of things. So it's a little bit customizable. There are also journeys to a forest, a journey to your own special place. So it's that taking those moments and giving yourself an image to hang on to during the day. That's what we try to do anyway. The next section are short yoga pieces. Those are all less than 3 minutes long. There are a series of short yoga exercises. There's an animation on the screen, and this little green animated figure, which looks like nothing in particular, leads you through a short exercise that is focused on getting blood to flow to your head and to bring your energy up and to be able to, again, take that deep breath, breathe a little bit more easily. And I think the last update had 9 exercises, 9 yoga exercises. The new one that I'm not sure you've seen yet, Sherry, was inspired by the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, and these are all research-based exercises, short versions of what Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation promotes. But these are short bites set up for people who don't have a whole lot of time. And these are, again, with the same animation, and you bring blood to your brain. You bring energy up from your spine to your brain, all in short little bites. We also have a journaling section where you can identify how things made you feel as you were working through them. So I think it takes it full circle. Another new section that we added is a caregiver resource section. And in that, there's a little bit of an introduction to a falls prevention program. There's links to research like the Pew Internet Research Organization, links to their research about the particular things that caregivers face, the particular issues that caregivers face that have to do with stress and why it's so important to reduce that stress. So that kind of brings it full circle. And I'm glad that you think it's a beautiful app, because that's one of the things I really wanted to focus on is, yes, the function is there, but in order to relax, you've got to set that mood, and you have to feel welcome, feel like it's an inviting exercise. And that's a tough thing to do on a smartphone or an iPad.
Yeah, on a small screen. Well, you pick such gorgeous imagery, and you're right. It just kind of, it has you melt into this, this kind of other place that you can go in your mind to kind of relax. It's interesting you mentioned Pew Research. I wanted to let our listeners know that in just 2 years from now, 30% of smartphone users will have downloaded a wellness app onto their phone. So you're ahead of the curve, Ruth, with your Relax app for care.
Well, the other thing that I thought was really interesting in the latest piece of research that they put out is they did a comparison with caregivers and non-caregivers and the use of technology. And caregivers, I believe the statistic was 70% of all caregivers got their health information, 72% got all of their, a good chunk of their health information online. So this myth that, the baby boomer generation and beyond is low tech and why are you focusing on those kind of things, it really is a myth. 72% of caregivers, family caregivers, got their information, health information online in a tech form, and only 50% of the non-caregivers gathered health information online. And I thought that was really, important to focus on, yes, an app, And technology is really a good way to get to caregivers and to deliver a meaningful product.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a wonderful, wonderful idea, and we know high tech's not going away. But what's so nice, I think, with your products is even though they're high tech, they're high touch because they're touching our soul. It's not this fast-paced craziness. It's really about helping you find the calm and going at a conducive pace. To help you find that inner peace. And so even though it's using technology, it really is about finding that peacefulness, which I think is what high touch typically gives us, is that sense of peace, that connectiveness. And to me that's a huge differentiation piece, and it's something that I would imagine can be done alone or like in a group meditation too. So if somebody, let's say, who has dementia and their care partner want to do something together, they could easily do a meditation type relaxation as a group function versus just always. I think sometimes people think you just have to do it individually, and that's not the case. I mean, I go to a lot of group meditations myself.
Yeah.
And things.
The other part of that is, when you're focusing on yourself and you're focusing on promoting your own health and well-being and your brain health, which is one of my main focuses, being social, and interacting with other people is an important part of that. And sometimes that interaction is face-to-face. Sometimes that interaction is really online in groups and forums. And, as a caregiver, you can feel isolated. You can feel like you're cut off from the world. You're dealing with someone who doesn't have a really, especially with people with advanced Alzheimer's, may not have a grip on our form of reality. And you don't have the time to go to a support group. Sometimes that connection online, that social connection online, is where you get sanity and you get that little bit of, what did you call it, touch?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you called it? High touch. Yeah, I love that. That's great. So it's that social element as well. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I love the fact, too, that you've created this smartphone app, because for me, I have it obviously on my phone, and it's, even if you're not doing it all the time, you're looking at your phone a lot during the day for a variety of reasons. You see that app on there, it's just a reminder, oh, yeah, you know what, I need to find some time for me today or later or whatever. I like that reminder that the app will give us.
Right. Yeah, it's just that reminder to take care of yourself, the reminder to take that deep breath, to focus on, bringing your stress down, because we're more effective people, we're more effective caregivers, we're more effective helpers, we're more effective at everything when we just take it down just a little bit, every now and then.
Yep, bring it down a notch.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that's nice is once it's on your phone, then you have access to your calendar, so you can actually, just set an ongoing reminder, on your calendar that, maybe it's every morning before you get out of bed. You're just going to do a meditation, or before you go to sleep, or maybe it's going to be midday. When I was in real estate, I would be going at such a fast pace. And that was an industry that really struggled sometimes between the high touch, high tech thing. When all the computers came out, that everyone was just going to throw computers in front of everybody's face and never really meet in person. It was kind of an interesting process. But I would get so busy, and I would just shut my office door. I'd light a candle, and I'd just take 20 minutes, and I'd just meditate. And that really centered me, and I could feel so exhausted and so overwhelmed, and it would just totally rejuvenate me, just totally set me as like, look out world, I'm ready to go again, and it's kind
and
of
you're
amazing.
Better and stronger, right?
Yep.
Well,
exactly.
When I when I talk to a lot of groups, the thing that's so insidious, if you will, about stress is it is invisible very often. We don't even realize how we're stressed inside of our bodies. And when I talk to groups, one of the questions I always ask as I'm speaking is I said, let me ask you, is anyone right now have their tongue pressed against the roof of their mouth? And inevitably, at least 50% of the audience will shyly raise their hands. And that is one of those invisible signs that we're holding stress inside that we don't even know that we're doing it. And so it's really something we have to pay attention to in our bodies, I think.
I think we might have – oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
I was going to say I think we might have somebody on the line with a question, so I'm just going to check here. But we've got somebody from a 203 number on the line. Did you have a question or comment? If you had a question,
no, it's Gary Kaye, and I'm sort of waiting my turn to talk about technology.
Okay, Gary, I had you down with a different phone number, so I'm going to go ahead and put you back on hold then again, and we'll pull you in a little bit. Okay?
All
Thanks, Gary. Okay, my mistake there. So go ahead. You had a comment, I believe, Ruth, that you wanted to make.
Yes, but I kind of lost it. We were talking about
we were talking about
the stress. Yeah, the stress in your body. Yeah, what happens, and I think the thing that we're most not aware of, the silent thing that Sherry's talking about, is the long-term damage that releasing chemicals in your brain that are a stress reaction can do. So it's not just, you're always in that heightened fight or flight. You're always on call, always on guard, looking for safety, looking out for your own safety, someone else's safety. The physical demands of caregiving also are a factor. So you roll all those things in a big bundle, and yes, it's a silent attack on your health that you just don't see, you don't feel. So.
Yeah. Well, I often tell, people, again, that I speak to and caregivers that I encounter, if you took your hand and you just squeezed your hand as hard as you could all day long, my goodness, at the end of the day, your fingers would fall off from that constant stress and strain. Well, that's what's happening inside your body when you're not giving yourself that time to relax and just let it flow out, and it's hard. It's hard, but when you start to think of it that way, people go, oh, I get it. Now I see what's happening.
Right. And we also talk about things that happen to your, breakdown in organs as a result of flooding chemicals. It's just it's crazy to think about the amount of damage that stress can do to your body, and how simple things, you don't need a lot of time, simple things just to take it down a notch, just to take that deep breath.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, what I actually do is when I take my deep breaths, I also say something either out loud or to myself, depending on where I am. But I will, when I exhale, I will ask to release everything in my body that I no longer need. Mm-hmm. And when I breathe in, I ask for all the gifts I need to go on and be the best possible person I can. And so, I'm asking for what I need, and I'm releasing what I don't need to hold on to anymore, because so many of us hold on to so much junk. We worry about so much stuff that we can't control. And I don't know where that falsehood came that we can control the universe, But we put that on ourselves, and, it's such a gift when you can let it go. When you can let it go, and then to oxygenize your body, it just makes such a huge difference too. Because I don't think most people realize how shallow that they breathe. And that's something we all do and we all have to do. So why not learn to do it better? Just by breathing or holding in that breath a little bit longer. If it's while you're, driving in a car or while you're meditating or, whatever it is. It's something simple. It doesn't cost any money. It just takes a consciousness to want to make a change, just like getting in the routines of doing the brain exercises or the meditations.
Right.
It's a conscious effort. It's that mind shift that this is important, not only to yourself but to others as well. With that.
Go ahead,
yeah, Ruth, I was going to say we're coming up kind of towards the end of our segment, and we've been focusing a lot on the Relax app and talking about that. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to also just give us a quick overview of some of the other types of games and exercises that you offer through Cranium Crunches, because you've got so many different things for people to look at. So, Cranium
Crunches is a free website, and it's all photo-based. So the concept is that people will enjoy the photos. Every photo that we pick, we hope that it makes you feel something. It's people living their lives. You look at the picture, and it could be something that could happen to me, and most times it is. So it's a great way to connect with people when you're doing them with someone else. We have Find the Difference games. We have games where there are 9 pictures and one is different, and we call that one of these things is not like the other. We've got ones where there's some of those high-stress ones like Match, and we're coming out with the app for Match this week, actually, where you work on processing speed, those important things, reacting quickly. So you can learn in the context of your life in photo-based games. We've got memory games where you turn the cards over, kind of like concentration, those kind of things as well. We're coming out with a couple new apps in the next week or so as well. So that's all working. We've got a blog associated with the website, and where we talk about how to wrap things into your own life. How do you wrap brain health, make an everyday activity a brain healthy activity? Things
right.
like these.
What I really love about so many of the games and the puzzles and the different things that you've created are that those are really things caregivers can do with their loved ones, particularly if your loved one does have dementia. So it's a great way to interact, and I think it's really important because often, Lori and I talk about when your loved one is diagnosed with dementia, you just feel like you can't do things with them anymore, and this is an opportunity to kind of bring that fun, if you will, back into both of your lives.
Right, and one quick thing, I met a pair of sisters at the AARP convention, and they were looking at a memory match. They were looking at memory match games. That's the one that's like concentration, where you turn the cards over. So I made them. They were so afraid that their dad was going to forget their faces. So I made them a memory match game that had photos of their faces and of their children's faces, so that at least they knew that their dad was seeing their face. And that if he didn't know who it was, at least he saw their face, and that was so important to them. So that was a really cool kind of thing that we did.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, is that something that you can customize for most people, or?
Yes. Yeah, you can. You can customize. Yes, you can. On the site, you can customize a memory match album. There's a button you can click to order a custom memory match album.
Okay.
So that's
cool.
a great little present for somebody. It's only $2.99, and you've got this customized game that's all yours with your photos in it. So that's a good thing. We're also coming out with the Memory Match app, which will allow you to take photos with your phone or take photos from your phone and customize your game as you go and have custom
cool.
memory match. Yeah, it's not quite ready, but it's pretty close.
Wow, that's really
idea.
cool.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Can you give our audience your URL and how they would contact you then? And
of course. The website is www.craniumcrunches.com. And on craniumcrunches.com, there is a link to our apps, which will take you to the Apple pages or the Google Play Store. It's also available on Kindle and Nook. And on there, you can order a custom memory match album. I wanted to mention real briefly that 10% of all the proceeds on the Relax app does go to the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, because they were such a key part in helping me develop the what we call the Brain Booster section on the app. So we're giving 10% of all of those proceeds to them, which is I really like because I love them. But it's craniumcrunches.com.
Well, they're an amazing organization doing just some phenomenal things. And for people who aren't familiar with them, I would recommend that you go to their site. It's just alzheimersprevention.org. And they have some great tools there. They've got a really fun 12-minute yoga meditation. I was just on a webinar with them too, and you can donate to them, and they have lots of neat events. So definitely check out the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, and I give kudos to you for supporting them, Ruth. And working together with them. It's a nice partnership that you've got going there. So that's great.
It's the right people. Yes, the right people doing the right work. They're doing great work, and they've got their thumb on the pulse of what's going to help us make that next breakthrough. So I'm thrilled to be associated with them.
That's great. Well, we'd love to have you back another time on the show. You have so many great things going on, and you'll have to definitely keep us posted when your new apps go live. And if you want to, send me some kind of like press release or something, I'd be more than glad to push it out on the blog. And we want to make sure that you're in our resource directory as well, so people can find you. Again, these are absolutely fantastic ideas for gift ideas, with the holidays coming up here. Here he has a question. He says, do you let your mind wander like daydreaming or more controlled when walking through a forest and observing the sights and sounds, when you're doing, one of your relaxation?
Yes, you can let your mind wander. You really can, and what the guided relaxation does is it's an imagery. So during the exercise, we ask questions. What do you hear? Do you hear the birds? Do you hear the water? You come to a clearing. What do you see? So you can use your own imagination and fill in the pieces. I think that guided relaxation and guided imagery is much more effective when you do fill in your own spots, when someone is not saying there is a chickadee sitting on the branch chirping at you. That may not have relevance in your world. It may be, it may be a sparrow. It may be something else that has significance that you can bring that image to your, up, and that will have it more effective for you. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Well, again, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate the time you spent and the knowledge you shared. And again, to everyone listening, if you can, help us share this episode with people, that would be great. You can, like this page. If you've got a Twitter, go ahead and share it. You can, push it out to your LinkedIn and Google groups as well, because this is good information for people to have. So again, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth. Great to talk to you.
You too, Sherry. Take care of yourself. Be well.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Bye now.
Thanks.
before I introduce our next guest, I always kind of like to do kind of a mid-session break. And with that, kind of highlight some past things. If you did not hear our last radio show on the 19th, it was about building alliances, and we were so lucky to have Karen Love with us, who is launching a new National Dementia Action Alliance group, which is partnering with Plentree and the Eden Alternative, and that's pretty exciting. We also talked quite a bit about memory cafes. We had a couple other facilitators around the country, and then some people who attend the memory cafes, and both those with dementia and their care partners talked about what they liked and how it was beneficial to them. And our next radio show coming up, I think I'm going to kind of change it up a little bit, but I think I really want to do a show focusing on the holidays and how can you get them to go smoother. I think that's a really important thing. So I would encourage anybody who's got some thoughts regarding that to call into the show. I think I'm going to kind of go with an open forum somewhat, but would really like to hear voices from all over the world on, what's gone wrong and how have you made it better, or how have you avoided issues, because this is just such a precious time to create memories, and we want to help people do that as well as possible. Our last Dementia Chats was back on October 22nd because I was ill with food poisoning on November 12th. But again, that episode is getting a lot of review. Our experts living with dementia talked about what it's like to be dementia-friendly, how companies can improve their service techniques to really help those who are diagnosed or those who are caring for them, and they gave some just wonderful, wonderful examples. Our next Dementia Chats is going to be this afternoon, and that'll be at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central. That is 1 p.m. Mountain and noon Pacific Time, and we would love for you to join us. I'll be doing a blog post on that shortly, or you can always go to Facebook to Dementia Chats too. It's always the same entry point, or to the Alzheimer Speaks website to the About page, and then to Dementia Chats to the login sector. On the blog, we didn't have a ton of writing this time, but there was just one article I wanted to highlight, and that was written by one of our interns, Michelle, and she entitled it "The Key is Communication," and it was kind of fun. I did a 6-part speaking engagement for Keystone Communities here in Minnesota, and she came and where I was speaking and brought 6 people she worked with, and it was kind of funny because they kept saying, "Oh, she's just nuts over this. She just loves this whole Alzheimer's thing. She's so excited. She can't really talk about anything but." And she said everyone after the presentation was so excited too. She said they can't stop talking about it either. And so it was fun to see that kind of energy go through the room. We had a really nice turnout, probably about 70 people, which was a great community showing, especially when we were in the midst of one of our first snowstorms here in Minnesota. So let's go ahead and introduce our next guest. And Sherry, would you like to go ahead and introduce Gary?
I would love to, because I've known Gary for a number of years, and I personally call Gary our guru of boomer technology. He started a new website, and he's the founder and chief content officer for In the Boombox, which is dedicated to technology for boomers. And he brings to this site all of the wealth of experience of all his years in technology. He's got so many firsts, and he's a pioneer in so many ways. But, he's been covering technology since IBM introduced its first personal computer back in 1981, for those of us boomers who remember that era. And he's been a correspondent and a contributor to NBC News and ABC and Ziff Davis and CNN and Fox Business Network, and he's covered the Comdex Computer Show and the International Consumer Electronics Show, and worked with Peter Jennings on World News Tonight, and done so many things. And he's also a contributor to AARP's website and their radio program on technology for boomers and beyond. And so it's a thrill to have you here, Gary, to tell us about what's the latest, greatest that we can all look forward to, and maybe even think about, for the holiday gift-giving season. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Sherry. Good morning. So there's an awful lot that's going on, and one of the things that we're looking at these days, especially with the rising costs of healthcare and caregiving, is whether these developing technologies can help both ease our burden and also ease the financial burden on the healthcare system and our society as a whole. And I started getting interested in this as I was looking at some of the research that Intel, the big chip company, was doing. And they actually started a center in Ireland called Trill for technology research and independent living. And they started looking at things like falls prevention. And as you know, falls are very, very costly, both in monetary terms and in health terms. An elderly person takes a fall, it can result in a hospitalization, and all too often it results in a deteriorating physical condition that can lead to death. And so what these guys started looking at was whether or not there are low-cost ways of predicting whether somebody's going to fall. And yes, folks, there's an app for that. So what they did was they took a system that had already been done and proven out in laboratory environments called timed up and go, in which a patient gets out of a chair, walks a few steps, turns around, comes back, sits down, and then does it all over again. And by measuring a person's gait and the speed with which they do it, they have developed algorithms that can predict within roughly 80% whether somebody is likely to take a fall. So what does that mean in terms of real terms? Well, if you know that you or someone you're taking care of is likely to fall, there are some things that you can do. And there are also, unfortunately, some things you can't do. So the simple things are like putting handholds next to a bed. It's like telling the patient, if you wake up in the middle of the night, instead of just getting right up out of bed, sit up for a minute or two, get your bearings before you actually stand up. And so all of these little things, which cost almost nothing to implement, can result in some dramatic reductions in the likelihood of falling.
Well, and you bring up falling, and I know it's something we're all so worried about, both for ourselves as we get a little bit older, but also for our older parents and particularly those with dementia. And, you mentioned that it can even result in death, Gary, and I know that the CDC reported that, every 28 minutes a senior falls at home that results in death, and we know 2 million seniors are treated in emergency rooms. So it's a huge, huge issue and a great worry, causing, more stress for us caregivers out there.
I mean, the biggest thing that bothers me in terms of what I've looked at is that staircases are just a disaster. And, my best advice is that when somebody reaches a certain age or a certain condition, they basically just give up on getting to that second floor or getting down to the basement because, unless you have like a stair assist, to get you up and down, they are problematic, and there's very little you can do other than even if you hold the banister firmly and just remember that you should not be carrying packages or carrying much of anything as you go up and down those stairs. The stairs are probably the worst obstacle in the home.
Right. So let's say, your loved one has fallen. What are some of the tech gadgets out there? We talk a lot about these personal emergency response systems. Tell us about those.
Well, there are all sorts of things out there, and we'll start off by talking about what they call the PERS systems, which is that's the acronym is the Personal Emergency Response System, and they come in a couple of varieties. The most common are the pendant or the watch that you wear around your neck. Some use your local telephone system in your house. You push the pendant, and it activates a receiver within the house and calls a response service or notifies your caregiver. The others rely on the cellular service, and so they're good anywhere where you can get cell service. So if you go out of the house, and something happens, you can just press the button. One of the things that happens that we've seen a lot is that folks who are still capable of driving in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on, will get in the car, they'll leave the house, and they'll forget where they are or where they're going. And so one of the things you can do with these PERS systems is you can push a button, and some of them will allow you to reach an operator who will tell you where you are. They'll be able to geolocate you based on the signal and actually give you directions to get back home, or they can call for third-party assistance, whether or not that's like an ambulance service or a policeman, or notify your own loved ones to help you get back home. But the biggest issue with PERS, and especially when it comes to PERS and dementia and Alzheimer's patients, is how do you get them to remember to put it on? Mm-hmm. And that's really the biggest issue. What they found with a lot of the studies is that people just stop wearing them. Again, with dementia, it's they forget to put them on. With other people, it's we can't even be bothered. So there are now some devices out there that will monitor you sort of whether you like it or not, or whether you remember it or not. One is a GPS-equipped shoe from a company called Atrix, and they have various systems. It's about $300. And that will work with an app on your smartphone so that you know if somebody wanders off exactly where they are. Because what they've found is that dementia patients tend to remember to leave their shoes on. Now, if they take their shoes off, you got a problem with that one. Another is a wristwatch. And there are a couple of different configurations. Some will allow you to work with essentially a handheld PDA or your smartphone and enable you to establish a perimeter for your loved one, so that if they walk outside of that perimeter, you or a caregiver or a loved one and so on is automatically alerted that the individual has gone outside of the perimeter that you'd set up, and will show you on a map on your device where they've gone. Mm-hmm. Again, for those who still have a relatively high level of cognition, the simpler personal emergency response systems are fine. I generally recommend the ones that are cellular based, simply because unless you're housebound, you're probably going to go out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'd like to just interject, if any of our listeners have ideas or have run across methods that have helped them, if they're using any of these personal emergency response devices, on how to wear them or carry them, we'd love to hear from you as well. So please feel free to call in live if you'd like at 714-364-4757. That's 714-364-4757. Or use your chat box as well, because we're always open to learning new ways and new tricks, and it's about sharing ideas because it is a difficult one. I know I've had some people who have really liked even the ones in the cell phones for those with younger onset who are used to carrying a phone and keeping it on them all the time. That seems to be kind of, remembered, that's something that they want close to them. But others have said, again, if it's a purse for a woman, they know they have to, put it in there and zip it up so it's not seen, but they know that their wife will always carry her purse. So just, whatever tricks are out there, we'd love to be able to hear those from you.
Now, some of these do rely on, some of these do rely on direct action by the caregiver. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the wristwatch, a company called Caregive does the wristwatch coupled with a PDA, and it isn't cheap. It's the whole system is about $1,400, but if the watch itself is rechargeable, but the battery only lasts about 3 days. So it's really up to the caregiver to make sure that watch is always charged up. One of the nice features about that is that it comes with a security device, so the patient can't take it off without assistance. So generally a third party has to remove the watch. So if the patient wanders off, he can't just say, well, I don't want to be wearing this thing and throw it away.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the drawbacks. I mean, certainly I think the PERS devices and gadgets are great, and like you said, Gary, if you might have early onset, you still got certain cognition, and you want to walk to your church or synagogue, and you still want to be able to do that, but you want to stay safe so that maybe you don't wander off or whatever. But it does require, as you said, the caregiver has to be vigilant and involved, and also I always worry about these things, because what if your loved one falls, like we were just talking about, and they either hit their head or they're so far away from, their phone or their device or whatever, they can't get to it to press that button, and then what, right?
Well, one of the things that is being built in, and I think we'll start seeing more of this within the next year or so, are the same kinds of accelerometers that are in motion trackers for fitness applications. And that can actually be set so that if somebody does take a fall, whether or not they're conscious, that's going to be triggered simply by the motion, the speed of that fall, the change in the acceleration.
Right.
So that is one technology that can deal with that, but it's not really prevalent yet. But it's getting there. I mean, even the new Apple iPhone 5S now has a separate processor for an accelerometer.
Right. And tell us a little bit about what that accelerometer technology does. My understanding, someone explained it to me, and they said, well, when you turn your smartphone or your iPhone and the screen shifts, that's what the accelerometer is doing. Is that correct?
Well, that's certainly one of the things that it does. But the accelerometer basically measures motion. And so once you sort of say, I want it to measure motion, then you've got a lot of ability to say, well, what kind of motion? What kind of distance? How much effort? Do I want to sense, and how do I translate that? So it's not really simple programming. I mean, there's a lot of technology that goes into just moving it from a chip to having a really useful application. So whether it's a twist of the wrist to turn the orientation of your smartphone from horizontal to vertical, or whether it's measuring somebody falling, those are obviously very different algorithms, but they're all generated from this one kind of chip.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing I wanted to do, we've been talking about devices that you basically wear or have to have on your person, but there's a whole other genre out there that's really taking hold, which are passive sensors that you don't wear but you put around your house, and they tell your caregiver or someone who's monitoring you sort of what you've been up to without you having to do anything or remember anything. And those can be very, very useful. Some of the systems are pretty expensive, but some are now starting to come to market at fairly reasonable prices. So what they've discovered, and there are a number of people who've done this research, but what they've discovered is that we are all, to some extent, creatures of habit. So if you put a sensor in your bathroom, or you put a sensor on your pillbox, or you put a sensor on your refrigerator, by monitoring the way that you live and how often you get in and out of bed, or how often you go to the bathroom, or how often you go to the refrigerator, you can determine what a normal pattern is. And if the sensor doesn't sense you doing these things, or senses you doing too much of them, or not at all, then that can be programmed so that a monitor or an individual can be alerted to say, you know what, based on this patient's normal living, he's not doing what we expect him to do. And you probably want to take a look at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Lori,
and so these passive systems, I think, are really exciting in terms of not only Alzheimer's, but certainly people who are really getting up there in age and still want to be living alone.
Right. And I think from a safety standpoint, they're terrific. But Lori, you and I both have talked with caregivers, and it's difficult sometimes to get your parent to agree to be monitored, right? I mean, that's the challenge here.
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure I'd want somebody knowing every time I go to the bathroom or every time I peek in the refrigerator or whatever, too. And so
my attitude these days is that, we don't have any privacy left, so let's just get over it. And I mean, I know that's not necessarily a popular view, but the reality is that, you step out on the street and you've got security cameras covering 90% of Manhattan or 100% of London. And they've got face recognition, and every time you go online, somebody knows you're doing it. So do I care if somebody knows when I'm going to the bathroom? Not particularly. Do I care if they know I'm going to the refrigerator? No. So, I think that part of this is going to change as we get more folks who are moving into their senior years who've been raised with technology and who understand, it's not going to bite them. It's there to help.
Yeah, well, and that's true. We do have a couple of questions here. Harry is saying, so many people are struggling just alone to be able to afford their medications, let alone any of these devices. Are any of them covered by insurance that you're aware of, Gary?
I don't know if any of them are covered by insurance. I do know that a number of the major health management groups have started looking into them and making them part of their plan. So, for example, Humana did one of the first big studies on using monitoring in home, because what they discovered is that by ongoing monitoring, they can actually save money. So they're willing to, in some cases, install some of these systems. It really depends on who your healthcare provider is and whether or not they think that this is something important. And I think that when you start looking at the cost-benefit analysis as we move further down the lines of constrained resources, I think people are going to conclude that this is going to be worth paying for as part of the coverage.
Well,
I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, it's definitely in the future, but I know I've talked to a couple of different groups working on, virtual doctor visits. So if you've got a loved one, I know that's difficult for caregivers to always take time off work or, get their parent to a doctor's visit. So if you can have a virtual doctor's visit through some kind of a telemonitor type device, and they can step on a scale, and all of a sudden the information goes directly to the doctor's office. They know what your blood pressure is because you can do all that from your living room. Do you see that as the future?
Well, I think the obvious response is yes and no. When it comes to the monitoring of chronic care populations, people with congestive heart failure, people with diabetes, people with known ailments that follow generally a specific course, then ongoing monitoring has proven to be incredibly effective. So, for example, with a population of congestive heart failure patients, they'll put in like a tablet computer style monitor. And every day at a fixed time, your caregiver, in this case generally a nurse practitioner, will give you a call and look at you interactively on this tablet and say, well, how are you doing? And then they'll take your vital signs. They'll look at your blood pressure, via a wireless blood pressure cuff. They'll look at your scale, what your weight on a wirelessly connected scale. And, check your pulse through the blood pressure cuff and go, okay, everything seems to be stable. Or they'll start seeing, a little bit of a bleep saying, well, your weight's gone up, 2 pounds in the last 2-3 days, or your blood pressure is up. And that allows them to sort of step in and intervene really early in the process. Say, okay, I see something's going wrong. Let's try this tweak in your medication, or let's try this tweak in your diet. And by doing that, they can dramatically reduce what goes wrong if there's no intervention over like a 3 or 4 or 5 week period, and the next time something goes wrong, you're back in the hospital. They've been able to reduce readmission by double-digit figures, in some cases like 90%, with this kind of ongoing monitoring. So when you're looking at monitoring as a way of representing a deviation from the norm and as an early indicator, then I think this is incredibly valuable. And the same thing's true of diabetes, COPD, and a number of other chronic ailments. In terms of, I don't feel well, let me dial my doctor up on my tablet, not quite as effective, at least I don't think so.
Right. Well, going back to our guest question, a mutual friend, Gary, that we both have, Eric Dishman, who, headed up Intel's foray into all of this, he said to me there's going to be 2 different paths. One path is going to be from, the insurance companies or Medicare or whatever that will cover certain technology to, help us manage, our health. And then the other path is going to be those things that we do as families because it will keep us safe or it will keep us maybe more fit or whatever. And so do you agree that there's going to be some stuff that will be covered and some that certainly won't?
Well, I think Eric is spot on. Of course, Eric's always spot on. But, one of the bizarre things that's happening in all of this, and I sort of, as I was researching this book I'm trying to get going on new technologies for aging in place, I started looking at who the players are in the system. And the bizarre thing to me is that the folks, other than family members, who obviously have a vested interest in caregiving and taking care of their parents and so on, but the other player who has a vested interest in our health, believe it or don't, is the insurance companies. Because they only make money if we're paying premiums, and they're saving money if we keep ourselves healthy. So the insurance companies have more of an incentive than anybody else in the equation other than the immediate families in keeping us alive and well and taken care of. So it is in their interests. Isn't that bizarre? So I still have a lot of trouble thinking of the insurance company as my friend. But, let's not even get started there. So they do have this interest in implementing these technologies because they do reduce the transaction costs, and they do reduce renewed hospitalizations. And as you know, the difference between a 2 or 3 minute call with a nurse practitioner once a day and one visit to an emergency room or one hospitalization is going to be thousands of dollars. So from that point of view, yes, Eric is correct, but not everybody is going to be handled by an insurance company that's going to look at it this way. So you get folks who are doing it on their own, and you have monitoring services. One is called Be Close. You've got another that's sort of a family do-it-yourself system from Lively. And Lively will let you go out and buy a handful of sensors, and they'll charge you only about, buying the package of, I think, 6 sensors is $149, and the monitoring costs are about $20 a month. And you put the sensors in the house, whether it's in the bed or the bathroom or the refrigerator, wherever it makes sense, or on a door, so that you can monitor usage. It takes a few weeks to really develop a pattern that's discernible, but after that, the system will alert you when something is amiss, and $20 a month after that initial investment of about $150, that's not that bad, and that information can be distributed to whomever in the food chain you need it distributed to.
How much did you say a month? I'm sorry, can you repeat that? What was the cost a month?
The cost is $19.95 a month for the monitoring service. Okay.
Because I know we're getting comments in the chat box where again, especially people with dementia are just so overwhelmed because they've lost an income typically, sometimes two, and money is tight, and so there was comments that sometimes they'll give a device for free, but if people can't afford the monthly basis, then it's all kind of a moot point. The other note that I just wanted to make from a comment here was Steve had said, so much of these products are self-reliant reliant on the caregiver, and he says, how much more can we keep putting on them? We really need to devise technology that allows the device to work with somebody with dementia who probably isn't going to remember to push a button, as the disease progresses, but is still going to be able to pick up on the need. So I just wanted to make their comments heard out there, and I know that people are working on those.
Yeah, there are a number of ways of handling this. There's an outfit that's called Be Close, and they will do all the monitoring for you, but it's a lot more costly. I mean, they're going to charge you $69 a month for the monitoring to have a warm body out there keeping track of what the sensors are saying, as opposed to the $19 a month that Lively charges to sort of make you responsible for getting the information and letting the software determine the patterns. And then you have the institutional stuff that the joint venture by Intel and GE called Care Innovations is working on, and that was a lot of the stuff that Eric Dishman helped initiate, that kind of monitoring system.
So
but
I have a quick question on the Be Close monitoring system. Is that kind of like an OnStar, where they're monitoring your level one, they may see something amiss or, something going on, and then they can connect, the caregiver to the situation or emergency personnel. Is that how that works?
Yes, that is how it works. So it's a far more active involvement than, say, the lively, go out, buy it, and install it yourself system. But again, it's the difference of, $40-50 a month. So that's
right.
And let's face it, you get to living on a fixed income, and every one of those dollars makes a difference in your lifestyle. And if you're a caregiver who himself or herself is getting up there in age. I have friends now who are in their mid-60s, who are retired or semi-retired, and who have parents who are in their 80s and 90s. And they don't have the kind of money that they would like to be able to pay for the ongoing monitoring, because they're living on the fixed income as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's that...
And that situation is only going to get worse as the numbers keep growing.
Right. And, again, I spent the first part of my career in technology. You've seen it throughout your career. The chicken and the egg with technology is the more people who adopt whatever the service or gadget or gizmo is, then the cost can come down. But, it's kind of, how does that happen in an era when, as you said, we're not youngsters with, disposable income. We're getting into our senior years where every dollar counts.
Well, one of the issues, one of the things that I spend some time looking at and not really happy with what I'm seeing is the notion that from a societal perspective, we really need some public policy intervention. And we need our public policy makers to understand that they can be saving huge amounts of money by making the investments in technology today. But, I spent some time talking to a lot of the aging advocates in Ireland a few weeks ago. And, what the folks at the NGOs were saying to me is, listen, the problem is that when you get into the politics of this, you've got people who are elected for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, and they're looking at a potential payout in 10, 15, or 20 years. And so there's no incentive for them to go out and expend political capital on trying to put this stuff in place, knowing that they're going to have to take the costs in now without realizing a lot of the benefits later.
Right. And my concern, having worked for one of the, if not the largest, health insurer in the world, is that there's a hesitancy within that insurance industry to invest dollars and be, future forward and innovative. They're always playing catch up. So I worry about even the insurance realizing the cost benefit of investing in the technology now for what we know is coming, with more and more people who could use it.
Well, what I'm seeing now is some light at the sort of in the middle of the tunnel from folks like Care Innovations, who are now trying to develop pricing models to incentivize their institutional buyers to basically add more patients with the existing caregiving base, rather than charging them for each new patient, so that the incentive is to reduce the cost per patient rather than increase the cost of the service to the institution. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I think as the institutions start looking at some of these models, we may see a little bit more enlightenment. But yeah, it's tough. United Healthcare just dumped 20% of the doctors in its Medicare Advantage plan in 10 states because the doctors were charging too much money, so they basically lopped off the 20%, and most of them were specialists who were doing a lot of specialized care. So I agree with you. They're not necessarily the most forward-looking folks in the world. So, it's where I think we need to get some more results from the public policy arena. Right now, it's just not happening. It's not happening for a variety of reasons, one of which is that our public policymakers simply do not understand the consequences of this tsunami of aging people coming down the pike in the course of the next 10, 30, 40 years.
Yeah. Gary, before we run out of time, I know we've talked a lot about safety and remote monitoring and the PERS devices, but we know there's other categories as well that caregivers think about. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about things that help us stay connected. So if grandparents live across the country from grandchildren, can't see them all the time, or so that category, and also maybe just our own health and wellness. What's out there that can help both our aging parents and ourselves as caregivers? Tell us a little bit about those things.
Well, let me concentrate on your first question a little bit more, because that's where I've got some more familiarity. The studies that I've seen, and your friend of mine, Eric, can talk to this, does talk to this a lot, and that is, as near as we can tell, social isolation amongst the elderly is more deleterious than being a pack-a-day smoker. Mm-hmm. The social isolation is worse for their well-being than the impact of their medical condition. That's a pretty broad statement, and everything that I've seen pretty much backs that up. So what do you do about it? Well, the answer is, here's one place where the technology can help. And even in places where there aren't technologies that are in place, what I did see in Ireland was some tremendous community outreach to try and get seniors out of their houses and into community centers for at least a couple of hours a week so that they could be face-to-face with folks. But when it comes to technology, tablet computers have been a really wonderful, wonderful invention. With things like FaceTime and Skype. And now you can hook HD web cameras to your television, and you don't even need a computer, so you can Skype with your kids or your grandkids and see them wandering around the living room, and you can set up an environment where you could actually walk around as if you're having a conversation with somebody instead of being glued to a desk. Or you can take a tablet computer and go out to the recreation area or sit poolside and still be in touch with your friends and your family. And I think this is going to change and ameliorate the fact that so many of us are so far from our family members. I had one of my kids did a semester abroad in New Zealand, and we Skyped all the time. It was the only way I was able to see the kid for 6 months, and it was a huge boom for us.
Yeah,
so I think that is certainly one thing. The other that was really interesting, I spent some time in a retirement home where they've got a program going to introduce octogenarians and nonagenarians, many of whom have had no computer experience, to computers. And what they found was that by bringing in these sort of ambassadors to help them along, and by starting them off in group sessions, they could overcome a lot of the fear and the trepidation that went with the introduction of new technology, especially if you see you're in a group where there are 20, 30 people around you who are all in the same boat. You're no longer afraid of failing in front of somebody else because you're all there learning this stuff together. And we've seen terrific adoption rates from these populations. They start using some basic email to communicate with the grandchildren. they start using some video conferencing. Even with dementia patients, they start using the internet to relive memories, to go back and look at places where they grew up, to remember events earlier in their lifetimes, and that helps them stay focused.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I did my cable TV show for RLTV, we focused on technology in a program that brought nursing students into assisted living homes to help the residents understand and learn technology like, getting on the internet or setting up a Facebook page and using Skype. And one of the gentlemen that we focused on, who was featured in our show, was Tony, and he was 85 years old at the time. And he adopted it with gusto and became a real techie. So this myth that older people won't embrace technology is truly just a myth. And, his caregiver, who was his daughter-in-law, said, I love the fact that Tony Skypes with me now because it's better than a phone call. When I would call him, I can't see his face. I don't know entirely how he's doing, but when I can see him on Skype, I can actually see how he looks, and I can tell if he's doing well that day. So I think that's one of the areas that can really be beneficial for caregivers and doesn't cost a lot. Skype is free, right, to download?
Skype is free, so is FaceTime, and so is Google Chat. Yeah, all of them. So, they're all out there. They're all relatively easy to use. With some of them, it's pretty easy to do conference calls, so you could get 3, 4, 5 members of the family all on together. So I mean, there's a lot of fun in that, and the learning curve is not that tough, especially if you've got one guy in the family who, and I know many families do have like their resident IT kid. Who can help get the parent or the grandparent set up with this for the first time around and walk them through it. And if there's a caregiver around, you teach the caregiver as well. But I think that this is going to be tremendous in terms of reducing social isolation. It also helps just in terms of allowing these folks to find out what services are out there that can help them. What devices that are out there. And you learn how to go search on the internet, and there's a world out there that you never ever had access to 10, 20 years ago. And it's not that tough to learn your way around. It's you start baby steps.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our audience is saying, that the kind of technology they think that they really need to improve is the video chats, and I think because they, again, a lot of my advocates with dementia are using, either the Google Chats or they're using Skype or they're using Zoom. But the more that can improve, it's really allowing them to connect with people not only just within their family and friends, but new people around the world to really make some significant differences in change and opens up a whole new social mode.
Let me tell you about one. I'll tell you about one of the simple things, excuse me, that I've seen that's very exciting, and that is right now most of these interfaces still require you to use words or names. Mm-hmm. And one of the simple things that can be done, and there are some folks who are doing this, is building an overlay that you can put over a Skype that just has pictures. And you use a touch-screen computer, a touch-screen tablet. So instead of having to look up whoever's name or whoever's Skype number, you just push their picture, and you're automatically connected. Mm-hmm. And that cool. I think having that increasingly will make life easier. And I've spoken to the Skype folks, and they sort of said, well, we'd like to get around to that eventually, but in the meantime, we'll let third-party developers try and do some of that.
Right. Well, and a couple of things for our listeners to know. There is a device out there called the Telekin. That was what we featured in our TV show. Now, the cheapest model costs about $500, I think, so it's not necessarily inexpensive, but it is a computer with a monitor, and as you said, Gary, it's a touch screen, and you just want a video chat, you push the button that says video chat, and you're instantly connected to the different lines that you've set up and different people to chat with. So, that's an idea possibly for the holiday gift giving. And the other thing I want the
right, and the nice thing about Telekin is you don't need an IT guy because it is a closed system. It's a lockdown system. The end user cannot make any changes to the programming that's on it. So it's really safe for somebody who's prone to say, "Oh, let's download this for free."
Right.
You're not going to be able to do that.
Right, exactly. The other thing I want listeners to know about, and Gary, maybe you know of some of these too in your area, but in my area, a lot of the senior centers are partnering with both high school and college volunteers, and they're called computer buddies. And they come in to the senior center, or they'll even go to your house if you want them to, and they'll help get things set up for you and give you kind of some lessons on how to, get on the internet or use Facebook or whatever. So
we've seen a lot of that, and what I'm finding is in the places where that's been done, just a tremendous amount of energy, not just on the part of the seniors who are getting the help, but also on the part of the young people, because the young people are walking in and they're talking to these folks, and they're understanding history, they're understanding context, they're understanding lives lived, and it's not just what you've gotten off the street. It's how you can work with these people so that you, as a younger person, can draw from their lifetime of experience and the stories that they've had, and it's been a marvelous process.
Yeah, definitely. That intergenerational is always exceptional. Exceptional experiences. We've got a company up here in town that works with schools and high school students that go in and will kind of set up Skype conversations for family members. And, they're kind of their IT person in the back of the room. They get them set up and they step back. And, they bring in the equipment to them and let them have their conversation and leave. And it's been gaining some popularity here, especially in some of the assisted livings and things.
I was at a senior center in Queens, New York, some months back, where they were having introductory classes, and this is primarily an Asian community, and the classrooms were packed. I mean, they have lines of people waiting to get in to take these introductory classes, and these are folks in their 80s and 90s, and it's just a marvelous thing to watch.
Yep, very, very good.
Absolutely. Well, Gary, I know we're kind of winding down on our time with you. If you had kind of your top pick list for holiday gift giving that comes in at a fairly, reasonable, affordable price, what would be your suggestions on things that are great for caregivers to think about?
Frankly, I'd start off with a tablet computer. It is such an incredibly useful device for everything from apps to monitoring. You can now connect up scales, blood pressure cuffs. You can use it for video conferencing. So I think, if I were going to start off with what's the one device that seniors should learn how to use and the family should embrace, it's a tablet computer.
And what
everything else after that, I'm sorry?
Say, what are the prices? Are we seeing any good Black Friday or Cyber Monday deals out there on tablets?
Oh yeah, I mean you can now get some decent tablets. There's one called Nextbook out there that's an 8-inch tablet or 10-inch tablet for about $120. And they'll do an adequate job. And of course, the Cadillac is still the iPad, and that starts at $500 and goes on up from there. But one of the things that I will say is that Apple still has the best ecosystem in terms of the number of available applications and the connectivity. And I'm not that much of an Apple fan, but they really do this one right. And when it comes to our needs, whether it's caregivers or the seniors or the family, there's a real wealth of plug-in technology for these devices, whether it's the software or the hardware, that can really make a difference. And the investment, even if you've got to spend the $500, it's like, okay, you do it once, and most of the apps that you're going to need you can get for free. And as we said, the video conferencing is free as well.
Right, with FaceTime. So maybe if you've got multiple siblings, you can all pitch in a little bit and get mom or dad the iPad.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I would start. Everything else is there's lots of stuff that's good. I mean, the Lively sensors are $149 plus $20 a month. You can get PERS systems out there. There's lots of stuff that you can do, but I don't think any of it is as dramatically useful as what you can do with one good tablet computer.
Right.
Interesting. Gary, for people who are interested in technology, how do they even find what's available out there? Do you have some favorite little haunts you can share with us where that people can find out?
Well, there's a website that basically sells products for seniors, which a lot of your listeners may be aware of, called First Street. And they always have some interesting stuff. When it comes to caregiving per se, I'm afraid that as near as I can tell, the marketplace is pretty much fractured, and I'm not seeing any one spot that I would call a terrific hub for this range of technologies.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no Best Buy aisle for caregiving or aging technology yet.
Well, I would love
there
to.
Will be.
If Gary, when you're talking to people, and same with you, Sherry, the Alzheimer Speaks resource website has a free listing people can have, and we do have a technology section. So I would encourage people to, go register. You have to register first, and then you can have access to that. But you can put in as many things as you want. And the only rule we have is to use the direct URL, not just a home page, because caregivers don't have time for the search and destroy. They want to get to the end product. And
I understand that.
Yep. And that's something I think that still isn't understood by most. Is who is their audience and what are they really selling for that. Well, this has been a really interesting conversation, Gary. I very much appreciate your time with us today. How do people get a hold of you?
And I'll put in a brief plug if I can, which is
Sure.
if your listeners are interested in some of the caregiving technology, especially the stuff that's targeted to boomers taking care of elderly parents, I do invite them to visit our website, which is intheboombox.tv.
Wonderful. Yeah,
where we look at lots of
to...
technologies, and we try and look at them through the diminished eyesight of boomers.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. So, In the Boombox TV. Great. Well, everyone will have to...
InTheBoombox.tv, right.
.tv. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Gary. Really appreciate you being part of the show and sharing your expertise. That's what Alzheimer's Speaks is all about, is just trying to connect people to one another to try to make life easier. So we really do appreciate your contribution today.
My pleasure, Lori. Thank you, and thank you, Sherry.
Yeah,
yep.
Great to talk to you, Gary. Happy holidays.
Yep, have a
Same
wonderful holiday.
Great Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Well, boy, we had a lot of great information that we got from people. This was absolutely wonderful today. Sherry, I wanted to ask you, do you have any, because it is, the gift-giving season, you had mentioned about maybe families chipping in, to buy some of the higher-end things. And I'd also like to say, maybe they want to prepay buying the access or the service for those items too would be a wonderful way to be able to give a gift. So if somebody's buying a monitoring system and somebody else is actually paying for the service for that, to try to help offset costs would be a great way to go. But do you have other items that are just kind of or companies that are just kind of your favorites that you'd like to mention that have excellent products for caregivers and those dealing with dementia?
Sure. Well, I think Gary is right. I think the tablet is such a great all-around product if you're looking to get something for, your older parent, because it can do so many things. And another option to think about, which can be a little bit less expensive possibly, are e-readers. Now, those can't do as much function as the iPad and other tablets, but certainly it's a great opportunity. I know that we got one for my dad, and, he loves books and he loves reading. But as we all know, our eyesight gets a little worse as we age, and he's really, really embraced the e-reader we got him because you can adjust the font. It's easy to flip the pages. It's not a really heavy book now if he wants to read the 800-page biographies of Mark Twain or whatever. It's really easy to do. So that's another thing to think about. And those can run anywhere from, I think some of the Nooks at Barnes & Noble are on sale for even $79, and, all the way up to the Kindle, Paperwhite, and Fire are great options as well through Amazon. Another, kind of quasi-gadget but really functional product I like a lot, and they've been around so long, and they're very, very credible and have a lot of different apps, is the Jitterbug phone. And, a lot of the listeners may have seen some of the TV ads that John Walsh, who's now part of their board, is doing around safety, the 5-star emergency response app, but they also have a nurse app available and fitness apps, and the Jitterbug is so elegant because it's got really large buttons, easy to see, easy to press on and off buttons. So,
and not a lot of extra crap on that one. It's just a basic phone that doesn't have all the complications.
Exactly,
which I think is
and it's pretty affordable. For just, I think it's anywhere from $15 to $20 a month. Some of the apps, like the Nurse app, I think is an extra $6 or so a month. But, it's very affordable. You're not locked into any kind of cellular contract. You can get the phone at Target or Best Buy or Walmart. So that's another option, and it's got some safety. As I said, it's got safety and health features built in. So I like those as well. And then there's something for caregivers that's really interesting. It's a little, device that you can clip onto your belt or your pants or whatever, and it's called the Fitbit. And it monitors a variety of different health functions. But if you want to know, for instance, how many steps you're walking per day, we know we're supposed to be walking 10,000 steps a day, which sounds like way too much, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. This Fitbit will monitor that for you, along with a lot of other things you can plug into it. So it's a really interesting little product for ourselves to keep ourselves healthy and well during the holidays. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, the Fitbit's a great route, and that can actually monitor sleep patterns and stuff too, which a lot of times people forget that can cause a significant hassle with us in terms of memory and function, if we're not getting enough sleep. So that's a wonderful route there. And I want to give a plug for lots of helping hands again. We talked with them last week, but again during the holidays, this would be a great time for people to go ahead and get kind of their own family and friends circle set up to help them care for a loved one. It's just an incredible organization and a wonderful way to be able to organize yourself and to help others.
I'm so
there.
glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned them, because when we are talking about technology, we can't forget some of these great, online communities and that ease the way of getting help for the caregiver. And I do love Lots of Helping Hands as well. They're wonderful. And, it's free. So we were talking about costs earlier. Well, there's something that's free, which is the best price possible. And you can also sign up in your community to do something nice for a caregiver you may not even know, but somebody who, needs some help. And you just want to help out this holiday season. You want to do, have that volunteer spirit and want to do something. Lots of Helping Hands really facilitates that for different communities as well as for, personalized private communities for families. So they are a great, great source.
Yeah. A couple other things I wanted to mention were just Puzzle with Me that has just great puzzles that are, a little bit thicker, a little bigger in size, not as many puzzle pieces, which makes it easier for people to be able to work with. MindStart is a company that has all kinds of different activities as well for people with dementia. The Jiminy Wicket program, which is the croquet game, those can be that would be a great gift for not only an organization such as an assisted living or a memory cafe or a church, but in the schools they actually do some intergenerational work with the schools and assisted livings and memory care. The Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation was mentioned, and they just have this great meditation, and they've got some wonderful things on food and diet that are available to people, and then music's always close to my heart. So Choral Health has some great ideas for gifts and some great apps. Music First is their app for Alzheimer's disease, but they also have it for other scenarios as well. And then a couple of my favorite books that I just wanted to mention was Max Wallach's book, Why Did Grandma Put Her Underwear in the Refrigerator? It's just an amazing story of a child telling her story about her grandma. And then Richard Taylor's book from the Alzheimer's from the Inside Out is also a wonderful, wonderful resource. If any of our listeners have anything that they'd like to mention, please go ahead and put that in. There's the Tenactus program as well, which can be uploaded to an iPhone, which is a GPS system, but it also is picture-oriented, and it also has kind of an emergency contact on each frame, no matter where you are on the phone, which is really cool to help people stay connected in terms of an emergency. So, things, I mean, they're kind of endless out there, and it's very, very exciting. All of the options and possibilities, for people.
Well, and I love what Ruth. Yeah, for the listeners who may have missed the first half hour, I learned something today, which was the customized memory game that Ruth Curran will do for you at Cranium Crunches. I think that's a great holiday gift idea, and it's $2.99. What better price can you find out there?
Yeah, that was way cool to hear. I agree. Way, way cool to be able to hear that. So it was wonderful. Well, I'm just very excited. I learned a lot on the show today, and I hope that our listeners did as well. Our next show will be next Tuesday. And, again, I think we're going to kind of go on the holiday topic of how do you make things go smoother. We're going to kind of be having that discussion today on Dementia Chat. So if you want to join us at 3 p.m. Eastern Time or 2 p.m. Central, and noon Pacific time, please do so. Those are free of charge. Last year we had just such wonderful comments and feedback that was just life-changing for families, what they had learned from those with dementia, teaching them how to prepare for the holidays better, how to do their gatherings so they're going to be more effective and more comfortable, basically for everybody. So lots to learn from one another. Again, I thank everybody for being with us. And Sherry, it's just been such a pleasure having you as a co-host all month here with us. So do you want to tell people how they can reach you? Your book would also, A Cast of Caregivers, would be a wonderful opportunity for people to purchase a great book with great stories about how to survive this caregiving thing that we're going through. And they can get that at your website. So do you want to give them some contact information about you again?
Sure, and I just want to thank you, Lori, for allowing me to guest host with you all this month. It's been such a pleasure, and you have such a dedicated, wonderful audience, so it's been great to talk to some of these guests and learn more and be able to share a lot of this good information. My book is called A Cast of Caregivers, Celebrity Stories to Help You Prepare to Care. And, I really talk about the book that it's almost 3 books in one, because you get 7 different celebrities, such as Joan London, Holly Robinson Peete, Alana Stewart, who cared for Farrah Fawcett, all telling their caregiving journeys. And I think it really helps us see that we're all in this caregiving, role together. We're all going to be stepping into that spotlight at some point. The middle part of the book is the What to Expect When You're Caregiving guide, and I even have an entire chapter dedicated to technology. So you can read up on some of the latest, greatest, and resources and a host of other things, senior driving, senior nutrition, senior housing, all kinds of things to think about. And then the last part of the book is where my heart is, which is how to take care of yourself while you're caring for a loved one, that balance that we know is such a challenge for so many caregivers, and I talk about my Me Time Monday plan. So you can buy the book on Amazon. It comes in both what we call a paperback cover, and it's a big book, so don't get too, scared that it's got a lot of pages in it, because each chapter is only about 8 pages. So you can really just pick up the book, read the chapter that applies or is interesting to you, and then have it as a resource for later. And it also comes in an e-format. So that runs about $7, I think, in the e-format, and the paperback, I think, is around $24 on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble online, as well as Barnes & Noble stores and booksellers as well. But you can find all the information on my website, which is caregivingclub.com, and there you'll see tabs for the book and other things that I do, and a lot of the articles that I've written for these holidays, things to think about for caregivers. And I just, again, Lori, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed, doing this with you.
Well, it's been my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll do it again another time here. So in the meantime, have a wonderful holiday to everyone who's listening. And again, if you are looking for an Alzheimer's Association anywhere in the world, go and just click on or Google Alzheimer's Disease International. They would be more than glad to point you in the right direction. Plus, they have just wonderful, wonderful resources there. And don't forget about the Lewy Body Association, the Frontal Temporal Lobe Association, the Aphasia, National Aphasia group as well. These are wonderful, wonderful resources that are out and available to you. And again, just have an amazing, amazing week coming up here, and I can't believe the holidays are just here. I don't know how we got this far in the season, and we're going to be rolling into a new year here pretty soon. It just kind of amazes me. So thank you everyone for listening, and we look forward to our conversation next week. We'll see you then. Bye now.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.